talk of Sioux Falls, 1140 KSOO.
It is 3:15 here on the Talk of Sioux Falls, 1140 KSOO. Coming up next in just a moment, we'll have Bob Keys. I was able to get him on the phone. Actually, Uber producer Dan Peters was, and he is a former Artist Leader reporter. He's going to talk about Garth Brooks. But first, I want to tell you about another music event, the Folk Off and Rib Challenge on next Saturday, the 29th. Music starts at 10 at the Strawbale Winery in Renner. There's going to be food and music and all kinds of good stuff. The big event, though, is the not reunion, they play all the time now, Red Willow Band, the old Sioux Falls country music act. Proceeds go to the Boys and Girls Club and the South Dakota Friends of Traditional Music. Tickets are $15 in advance or $20 at the gate. You can go to get a hold of Strawbale Winery or brownpapertickets.com, and you can find out more about that. Now, I'm very happy that Bob Keys, now of the Portland, Maine Herald, what is the name of the paper out there, Bob?
Hey, Pat, it's the Portland Press Herald.
I knew Herald was in there somewhere.
Yeah, you know, these newspaper names sometimes get long and wordy.
Yeah. Now, you were an Artist Leader reporter. What was you were an editor, you were a reporter, but what years were you here?
I started working at the Press Herald at the Artist Leader in 1988, and I left there in 2002, so I was there for 14 years.
Wow. You left quite a mark. What are you covering now out in Portland, Maine? It's a big paper, the Portland Press Herald.
Well, it used to be a lot bigger, that's for sure. Yeah. We're a mid-sized daily. Portland is not a huge city. It's only about 65,000, but we have a large metro area of about 200,000, 250,000, somewhere in that range. Yeah. And I write about the arts, and I write about mostly the visual arts and the performing arts, less about mainstream entertainment. But I should say, you know, the type of stuff I did when I was at the Argus Leader, which was a lot of music. Right. But I get to pick and choose when I want to do music, so that's nice. But my job is different now than what it was then because of the market and just because of my responsibilities. But yeah. I'm basically doing the same thing. So when you were here, one of the things I always remember about during your time here, and when Garth Brooks was here 20 years ago, I was actually working up at the Madison Daily Leader, and you were still just a young guy working at the Argus Leader, and you took on what I thought was a mammoth task, which was covering every one of the Garth Brooks shows while he was here. Yeah, it was crazy, and it was fun, and it was very exhilarating, actually. I went into I forget the number of shows, but it was over 4 days maybe, or 5 days, or something like that. And it was very similar to what's going on now. They announced one show, and then they just kept adding shows. But back then, the arena obviously was much smaller, and there was as much demand probably as there is now. And they just kept piling shows on. And he would do 2 a day. I think he did 2 a day for a couple days in a row, and maybe a show on a Friday night and a Monday or whatever. I can't remember the number, but it was intense. And yes, I went to every one of those shows. I don't remember if I reviewed every show because they did sort of become the same, but I think I wrote about the experience on a daily basis, which was intense and actually kind of fun in many ways. I mean, the crowd was every crowd was so energized and so into the shows. It was for the times anyway, it was a very unique experience, I thought. Yeah, I don't ever remember another artist at that time, or really since, doing like these multiple shows in a city, but he sort of made that his trademark. Yes. And I don't know that he's done it on every tour, but he certainly is doing it again this time. I think he probably is. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time since he's been out there, at least as far as I'm aware. And I don't follow music that closely. I haven't seen him since those shows in Sioux Falls. But I think he's kept a fairly low profile for most of the last decade or more. Yeah. It's a big deal that he's back out there. Yep, and he is the number one grossing artist in the first 6 months of the year in the country. Wow. So he's doing pretty well by any measure. Obviously, there's a lot of demand here. What's the appeal, do you think? What was the appeal back then? Because I think it's the same. He went through his little pop phase and all that. Like you say, he was kind of out of the public eye. But it seems like what he's doing now isn't that much different. It's updated. But what was the appeal then, and what's the appeal now? I think it's a part of it is certainly the energy, and I think it's the sincerity of his performances. I think when you go to a Garth Brooks show, you're getting an experience where that is very authentic and that is very heartfelt. That's the way it feels in the audience, and I think that's where that connection comes between him and the audience. The music, I don't know what he's done lately, frankly. But back then, the music was very universal in its appeal. Not even so much the blue collar, although that definitely was true, but as much as it was just the idea that we could all sort of relate to some of the stories he was telling. And those stories had a little bit of a range. It wasn't necessarily deep, but it was something that a lot of people could relate to. And many of the songs were just fun. I mean, they're party songs. A little bit of Jimmy Buffett in there with a little bit of Bob Seger and, just a lot of real down that middle sort of musical appeal that just crosses way out of that country realm and hits on rock and roll. And, he hit both of those audiences very well and did it in a very authentic way. The other thing that I think is really important is that he never has charged a lot of money for his tickets.
Yeah.
Back then, tickets were approaching $100 where the Eagles were playing, and he was charging $25. These tickets I see, I think, are $75.
Yeah, but they're all the same price.
Yeah, I mean, it's, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to spend $200 anymore to go to a show to get a seat of any quality. I don't know what the pavilion is charging, but, you're spending a lot of money, $100 or plus on a ticket. So.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, anything under $100, is a reasonable price. So I appreciate the fact that, while he could gouge, he's not.
And, he makes up for it by doing multiple shows. And if you think about that, if you can do that, you have your costs in terms of, travel and setup and all that. That doesn't change.
Right.
You just add shows on, play more shows, keep the price low. In the end, he probably makes more money.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
It's probably why he's the top grossing artist in the first 6 months of 2017.
Yeah, it's interesting that he could take so much time off and come back and do so well.
Yeah, because like you say, I can name, I got friends in low places and the Thunder Rolls bit, but I couldn't tell you a new song. Uber producer
exactly.
Dan Peters pays more attention to these things. Dan, what's a new Garth song?
I couldn't tell you because I have drifted away from country music I've been kind of stuck in this or I shouldn't say stuck, but I've been focusing on news talk for the last 5 years, so I haven't really taken the time to do that. But I think he's just got one recent album that's out since 2014.
Yeah, and that maybe that doesn't matter when you're Garth.
It doesn't. People are not buying tickets because of what he's doing now. They're buying tickets because of Friends in Low Places and Thunder Rolls and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's some great stuff. I mean, again, I'm not a fan. I don't own a record of his.
Right.
And I probably would not have gone to those shows had I not reviewed them. But I enjoyed them, and I could certainly relate to a lot of his music.
So I'm okay for not owning any of his records then too.
Yeah, I mean, when you make your final decision about what you're going to keep and what you're going to shed, I'm not, no offense at all, but I'm not keeping Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
Because I can access it anywhere, anytime. It's everywhere.
Bob Keys from the Portland, Maine Press Herald. Did I say that right again?
Portland Press Herald, yeah.
Portland Press Herald. Former Argus Leader reporter, covered Garth Brooks extensively during his first appearance here 20 years ago. Didn't you just get sick of it by the end, honestly?
Yes. I was very, here's the thing. This is what I remember most. I was exhausted and tired, and I just wanted to be done with it, and I couldn't imagine how he felt.
Oh, just the sonic nature of it, being in a loud atmosphere, fairly loud, for that much time has to just beat your body down.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But it's nothing like those metal bands that played in the arena for all those years. We had a run there where all we had at the arena were really, really loud metal bands and a lot of that mainstream loud country music and not much else. And it was both extremes and not great acoustics in that building.
No, it wasn't very good. From that back then, it's always interesting to think about. We had a discussion not that long ago about the biggest concerts in Sioux Falls history, because Paul Simon was recently here. Paul McCartney had just been here.
Which is great. What a fabulous thing.
Yeah, and I got to go to both of those shows. And so and then the Garth Brooks thing, and Foo Fighters are coming. That was the big thing.
Yeah.
From your time, what are the big shows that you remember?
The big shows, well, the thing that people have asked about the most and talked about the most was Aerosmith when I went to the Pomp Room, but that's not an official show.
No, but that was amazing.
That was the event.
Moment.
That was the thing.
Yeah, most people probably still don't know about that.
Right.
How did you end up with the band at the Pomp Room?
Just briefly, I had to write a review after the show at the arena. So I had to file something back at the paper, and then I went down to the Pomp Room. And there was a long lapse, I think, between when the arena show ended and when that thing at the Pomp Room began. But as I recall, by the time I got to the Pomp Room, there was no getting anywhere close to the stage.
No, and in fact, local promoter John Stever and I went to that Aerosmith show, and he said to me as we were driving back, "You want to stop by the Pomp Room?" And I said, I think it was a Sunday night. I really need to get back. I was a bit upset the next day when I heard what happened.
Yeah,
because for people who don't know, the Pomp Room used to be a just kind of grimy, hole-in-the-wall live music venue at 8th and Main, which is now a parking lot. And Aerosmith played the arena. They were doing a documentary, one of the MTV rockumentaries, and it ended up on MTV. They went and played the Pomp Room. It was wild and bizarre.
Yeah, very much so. A great moment, though.
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah, there were so many shows. I mean, very few of them stand out, quite honestly. Not because I can't remember, although that's part of it, but because at some point they become a blur. There was a period of a few years there in Sioux Falls when I felt like I was going to shows 3 times a week, either between what was going on in town, in clubs and at the arena or whatever, and also going to Minneapolis or other places.
Right.
It was just such a great time for music, and from what I'm seeing, it's a really, really great time now. A lot of things going on out there, which sounds great.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
Bob Keys, currently an arts reporter for the Portland Press-Herald out there in Maine, former Argus Leader reporter. Bob, thanks for joining us. It's been great to talk to you again.
Hey, it's always my pleasure, and I appreciate you thinking about me.
Cheers, brother.
Take care.
It's 3:27 on 1140 KSOO. Dan Peters is next on the Talk of Sioux Falls.
Hi, champion.